The locals called it the Friendship Bridge. I called it my nightmare. 3 months into my deployment in northern Afghanistan, I received orders that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Destroy the bridge. The only bridge connecting a remote village of 200 civilians to the regional medical center. The same bridge that enemy insurgents were using to move weapons and fighters into the valley where my unit was stationed. My commanding officer made it sound simple, but nothing about war is ever simple. The bridge sat in a narrow gorge about 15 kilometers from our forward operating base. Ancient stone construction, probably 100 years old, reinforced with newer concrete supports. It had survived Soviet occupation, tribal conflicts, and decades of harsh winters, and I was supposed to take it down in one night. I'm Captain James Rivera. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes doing the right thing means living with the weight of it forever. The mission brief happened on a Tuesday morning. Major Hastings called me into his office, and I knew from his expression that I wasn't going to like what came next. "Rivera, sit down." He spread a map across his desk. "We've got a situation with the bridge at Carez Gorge." I'd crossed that bridge a dozen times on patrol. Solid structure, strategic location, absolutely critical for the village on the south side. Intelligence confirms insurgents are using it for supply runs. 3 times in the past 2 weeks, moving weapons, ammunition, possibly IEDs. They're getting bolder. Can we set up a checkpoint? Control access instead of destroying it? Hastings shook his head. We don't have the personnel, and the terrain makes it impossible to hold. The gorge is too exposed, too many sightlines for snipers. Anyone we put there would be a sitting target. He tapped the map. Command wants it gone, tomorrow night. My stomach dropped. Sir, that village depends on that bridge. Their medical supplies come across it, emergency evacuations, everything. I'm aware. His jaw tightened. But we're losing soldiers, Rivera. Last week's ambush, those weapons came across that bridge. The IED that hit Sergeant Morrison's convoy, components traced back to the same route. Morrison had lost his left leg below the knee, 23 years old. He'd showed me pictures of his girlfriend back home just 2 days before it happened. I understand the tactical necessity, I said carefully, but there has to be another way. There isn't. He met my eyes. This comes from the top, regional command, signed off by the colonel. The bridge is a strategic liability, and it's your job to eliminate it. He slid a folder across the desk. You'll take a demo team, plant the charges at 0200 hours, detonate at 0400, in and out, minimum exposure. I picked up the folder, but didn't open it. What about the village? We'll notify the local council through our interpreter, give them time to stockpile what they need. He paused. Look, I don't like it either, but we're not here to build bridges, Rivera. We're here to complete the mission and bring our people home. The meeting ended. I walked back to my quarters feeling like I'd swallowed broken glass. I spent that afternoon reviewing the demolition plans with Staff Sergeant Chen, our explosives expert. He was methodical, precise, the kind of guy who triple-checked everything. I trusted him completely. Clean job, Chen said, studying the bridge schematics. 4 charges on the main supports, 2 secondary placements for redundancy, should drop the center span clean into the gorge. How long to plant them? 45 minutes if everything goes smooth. Hour if we run into complications. He looked up. You okay, sir? You seem off. I wasn't okay, but that wasn't Chen's problem. Just tired, long deployment. He nodded, accepting the lie. We finished the technical review, and I dismissed him to prep the equipment. That evening, I sat in the mess hall pushing food around my plate. Corporal Martinez dropped into the seat across from me. Heard about your mission tomorrow, the bridge thing. Word traveled fast on a base this small. Yeah. That's rough, sir. Those villagers are going to be cut off. I know. Is there really no other option? I set down my fork. Martinez, you've seen the intelligence reports. You know what's coming across that bridge. I do, she leaned back. But I also know what won't be coming across it after we drop it. Medicine, food, emergency transport. She paused. My abuela lived in a village like that back in Mexico. When the road washed out one summer, 3 people lost their lives because they couldn't get to the hospital in time. This is different. Is it? Before I tell you what happened at the village, if you're hooked on this story, hit that like button and subscribe. There are dozens more voices like mine here. And drop a comment with your country. I'm curious where all of you are listening from. The next morning, I requested permission to visit the village. Hastings wasn't thrilled, but he authorized it. 1 hour, he said. Take Martinez and Kowalski. Full gear, weapons ready. And Rivera, don't make promises you can't keep. We drove out in a Humvee, the morning sun already brutal. The landscape was all dust and rock, punctuated by struggling patches of green wherever water could be coaxed from the earth. Afghanistan had a harsh beauty to it, if you looked past the danger. The village of Kherez consisted of maybe 40 compounds, mud brick walls, flat roofs, narrow alleyways. Kids ran alongside our vehicle as we rolled in, their curiosity overcoming their caution. Some waved, others just stared. Our interpreter, Ahmadi, met us at the village center. He was a thin man in his 50s, educated, careful with his words. He'd been working with coalition forces for 3 years. "Captain Rivera," he greeted me. "This is unexpected. The elders will want to speak with you." "That's why I'm here." He led us through the village to a compound on the south side. Several older men sat on carpets in the shade, drinking tea. They stood when we approached, and Ahmadi made introductions. The eldest was named Khalil, 70 years old, maybe older, with a white beard and sharp eyes that had seen more than I could imagine. He invited us to sit, offered tea, the rituals of hospitality, even in wartime. Through Ahmadi, I explained the situation. The bridge would be destroyed. It was a military necessity. We regretted the inconvenience to the village. Khalil listened without interruption. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and Ahmadi translated. "Captain, that bridge is our lifeline. Without it, we are cut off from everything. The hospital, the market, the regional center. My grandson has a heart condition. He needs medicine every month. How will we get it without the bridge?" "I understand your concern," I said. "We can arrange supply drops, medical evacuation by helicopter if necessary. And when there is a dust storm, when winter comes and your helicopters cannot fly." Khalil's voice was calm but firm. "Captain, I believe you are a good man. I see it in your face. You do not want to do this thing." He was right. I didn't. But I have my orders. Orders. Yes, I understand orders. I was a soldier once too, many years ago, before the wars. I know what it means to follow orders you do not agree with. He sipped his tea. "May I tell you something?" "Of course." "That bridge was built by my grandfather. He brought stone from the mountains, hired craftsmen from Kabul. It took 3 years to complete. He built it because he lost his wife to a fever. She could not reach the doctor in time." Khalil's eyes were distant. He built that bridge so no one else would have to watch someone they love fade away, waiting for help that comes too late. The weight of his words settled over me like a physical thing. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I know you are." Khalil set down his tea. "But sorry does not rebuild a bridge. Sorry does not bring medicine to a sick child. Sorry is what you say there is nothing else to say." We sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, I stood. "I'll do what I can to make sure the village has what it needs. Supply drops, helicopter evacuations. You have my word." "Your word." Khalil stood as well. "Very well, Captain. I will hold you to that." We left the village. The drive back to base was quiet. Martinez stared out the window. Kowalski cleaned his rifle, a nervous habit. "That was rough," Martinez said. "Yeah, it was." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling, thinking about Khalil's grandfather building a bridge to honor his wife, thinking about Morrison's missing leg, thinking about the impossible choices that war forces on you. Around midnight, I gave up and went to the operations center. The night shift was quiet, just a couple of guys monitoring communications. I pulled up the intelligence reports on the bridge. 3 confirmed sightings of insurgent activity in 2 weeks, weapons transport, 2 casualties linked to equipment that likely came through that route. But 200 civilians who depended on that bridge for everything. I ran the numbers in my head, trying to make it mathematical, utilitarian. 200 civilian lives and their well-being versus how many soldiers we might save by cutting off the supply route. 5? 10? Where's the line? How do you calculate the value of a bridge? Chen found me there at 0100. Sir, we're wheels up in 30. Demo team is prepped. I know. He studied me for a moment. You don't have to come, sir. I can handle the placement. It's my mission. I'll be there. Copy that. The tactical operation went exactly as planned. We drove out with lights off using night vision. Reached the bridge at 0145. Chen and his team moved with practiced efficiency, placing charges on the support pillars while Martinez, Kowalski, and I provided security. The gorge was eerily quiet, just the sound of the river below and the occasional nightbird. The bridge looked different in the green glow of my night vision, ancient and patient, unaware of what was coming. Chen finished at 0230. Charges set, detonators armed. We're good to go. Fall back to the extraction point. We moved back 500 meters to a rocky outcropping with a clear view of the bridge. Chen prepped the remote detonator. Standard procedure. 2 keys, 2 officers. Chen had one, I had the other. On your command, sir, Chen said. I checked my watch. 0458. 2 minutes. I thought about Khalil, about his grandson with the heart condition, about promises that disappear when soldiers leave. 0459. Sir? Chen's voice was quiet. I turned my key. Chen turned his, the detonator armed, showing green. 0400. I pressed the button. Now here's where everything changed. But real quick, if you're invested in how this ends, I'd genuinely appreciate a subscription. More soldier stories drop daily. Comment your country below. Always amazes me how far these reach. The charges went off in sequence, 4 muffled cracks, precisely timed. For a moment, the bridge seemed to hang there, defying physics. Then the center span collapsed, stone and concrete dropping into the gorge in a cloud of debris and debris. The sound echoed off the canyon walls. Then, silence. Bridge is down, Chen reported over the radio. Clean demolition, no complications. Roger that, Hastings' voice crackled back. RTB, well done. We packed up and headed back to base. I should have felt relief. The mission was complete. No casualties, by-the-book execution. Instead, I felt hollow. The next 2 months were a blur of patrols, briefings, and the grinding routine of deployment. True to my word, I arranged supply drops for Karez village. Twice-weekly deliveries of food, medicine, basic necessities. It wasn't the same as having the bridge, but it was something. Khalil sent a message through Ahmadi. Thank you for remembering us. It is more than we expected. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Insurgent activity in our sector decreased significantly after the bridge came down. No more weapons shipments through that route, no more ambushes using equipment that came across the gorge. By every tactical metric, the mission was a success. Major Hastings called it a win. See, Rivera, you made the right call. Probably saved a dozen lives. Maybe. But at night, I still saw Khalil's face, still heard him talking about his grandfather building that bridge. Then, in week 7, everything changed. Ahmadi came to see me, which was unusual. Normally, he worked through official channels. But he showed up at my quarters after dinner, his expression troubled. Captain Rivera, I need to speak with you, in private. We walked to the far edge of the base, near the perimeter fence. Ahmadi kept looking around, nervous. What's wrong? I asked. I have learned something. About Karez village. About the bridge. What about it? Captain, do you know what the village elders do beyond farming? I shrugged. I assumed they governed local affairs, settled disputes. Yes, but some of them have other activities. Ahmadi's voice dropped. Captain, the elder, Khalil, the one who spoke so eloquently about his grandfather's bridge, he has been working with the insurgents for the past 2 years. I felt like I'd been punched. What? He facilitates their supply routes, provides intelligence on coalition movements, and yes, he was allowing them to use the bridge.
The medical supplies he claimed the village needed, some of them were real, but hidden among them were weapons, ammunition, materials for bombs. Are you certain? I heard it from someone in the village, someone who wants the insurgents gone but is too afraid to speak openly. Captain, they were using the village as cover. The elders agreed to it because the insurgents paid them, and because refusing would have meant violence. My mind was racing. The grandson with the heart condition? Real, but Khalil's concern was not just for his grandson, it was also for his arrangement with the insurgents. Without the bridge, their supply route was cut off. He lost his income.
I sat down on a concrete barrier, trying to process this. When you destroyed the bridge, Amadi continued, you did more than cut off the insurgents. You freed the village from them. The insurgents could not operate there anymore without the bridge. They moved on. The villagers who wanted nothing to do with the fighting, they are safer now than they have been in years. Why didn't anyone tell us? My voice sounded hollow. Why didn't someone in the village speak up? Because speaking up gets you taken care of. These people are caught between the coalition and the insurgents. They survive by keeping their heads down and telling everyone what they want to hear. Khalil's words came back to me. I was a soldier once, many years ago. His calm acceptance of the bridge's destruction, the way he'd played on my guilt, invoking his grandfather's story. Had any of it been true? The grandfather's bridge, the wife who couldn't reach the doctor. Amadi shook his head slowly. I do not know if that story is true or not, but I know that Khalil is a very good storyteller and that he tells people what they need to hear. I sat there as the sun set, watching the dust turn orange and red. I'd been manipulated, played. Khalil had seen my hesitation and used it, fed me a story about sacrifice and love and bridges, while hiding the fact that he was part of the problem I was trying to solve. But the complicated part? I'd still made the right call. The bridge needed to come down. It was being used to move weapons, to facilitate attacks that harmed my soldiers and endangered civilians who had no part in the fighting. I'd just made the right call for all the wrong reasons. Or maybe for all the right reasons, but without knowing the full truth. War doesn't give you clean moral victories. It gives you impossible choices and incomplete information and the hope that when you act, you do more good than harm. The next morning, I requested a meeting with Hastings and laid out what Amadi had told me. Son of a bitch, Hastings said when I finished. The old man was playing us. Playing me, I corrected. I'm the one who went to the village. I'm the one who bought the story. Hastings waved that off. Rivera, this is exactly why we don't get emotionally involved. You did your job. The bridge came down, the insurgent supply route got cut. Mission accomplished. But I didn't know. It doesn't matter what you knew. You followed orders and those orders were correct. The intelligence was good, the tactical assessment was sound. He leaned back. You're acting like you did something wrong. You didn't. I feel like I did. That's because you're human, but feelings don't change facts. You saved lives, Rivera, American lives and probably civilian lives too once the insurgents moved on. He was right. I knew he was right. So why did I still feel like something had broken inside me? I went back to Jerez one more time before my deployment ended. Amadi came with me, along with Martinez. Khalil greeted us with the same warm hospitality as before. Tea, carpets, the rituals of welcome. He asked about the supply drops, thanked me for keeping my word about supporting the village. I watched him carefully now, looking for signs of deception. But he was smooth, genuine seeming. If Amadi hadn't told me, I never would have suspected. The bridge, I said through Amadi's translation. The village has adapted to its absence. We manage. It is difficult, but as you promised, the supplies come. We are grateful. Are there still insurgents in the area? A slight pause. There are always men with guns in Afghanistan, Captain, but the heavy fighting has moved elsewhere. We are quieter now. Quieter because their supply route was gone. Quieter because the insurgents had no reason to use the village anymore. I wanted to confront him, to tell him I knew. But what would that accomplish? The bridge was gone, the insurgents had moved on. The village was safer, even if some of the elders had lost their under-the-table income.
and confronting Khalil would endanger Ahmadi's source, the villager who'd risked speaking up. So I drank my tea and accepted the old man's performance and said nothing. As we left, Khalil walked with us to the Humvee. "Captain Rivera," he said in English, the first time I'd heard him use it, "you were a good soldier. You followed your orders. That is what soldiers do." Was that acknowledgement? Confession? Or just an old man making conversation? I'd never know. Now, I need to tell you what happened next, but first, if this story's got you, show some love with a like and subscribe. I read every comment, especially love seeing where you're all from around the world. My deployment ended in March, 12 months in Afghanistan, and I came home to a hero's welcome. My wife Sarah threw her arms around me at the airport. My daughter Emma, 5 years old now, clung to my leg and wouldn't let go. "Daddy's home. You're really home."
I was home, but part of me was still standing at that gorge, watching a bridge fall. The first few weeks were an adjustment. Normal life felt surreal after a year of constant vigilance. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning thinking I heard incoming fire. The sound of fireworks on the 4th of July sent me diving for cover before my brain caught up. Sarah was patient. She'd been through this before with her father, who'd done 2 tours in Iraq. She knew the signs, knew when to push and when to give me space. But she also knew when something was eating at me. "Talk to me," she said one night after Emma was asleep. "You're not sleeping. You barely eat. What happened over there?" "Nothing happened. We did our jobs. Everyone came home." "James," she took my hand, "I know you. Something's wrong." So I told her about the bridge, about Khalil, about learning the truth too late, about making the right decision without knowing why it was right. "You did what you had to do," Sarah said when I finished. "I know, but I keep thinking about those villagers who had nothing to do with any of it, the ones who just wanted to live their lives. We cut them off because of Khalil's choices. And the insurgents moved on because you cut them off. How many lives did that save?" "I don't know." "That's the thing, isn't it?" Sarah squeezed my hand. "You never get to know. You make the call with the information you have, and you live with it." She was right, but knowing she was right didn't make the weight any lighter. 3 months after I got back, Ahmadi sent me an email. He'd moved to the United States with his family. His work with coalition forces made staying in Afghanistan too dangerous. He was living in Virginia now, working as a translator for a defense contractor. The email was brief. "Captain Rivera, I wanted you to know that Carez Village is doing well. A new bridge is being built with government funding. It will be completed next year. The village elders petitioned for it. Khalil signed the petition. I thought you would want to know. Ahmadi." I read that email 3 times. Khalil had signed a petition for a new bridge, the same bridge he'd helped insurgents use, the same bridge whose destruction had cost him his illicit income. Was it guilt? Pragmatism? A genuine desire to help his village now that the insurgents were gone? I'd never know that either. But the village would have its bridge again. And maybe this time it would be used only for the purpose Khalil's grandfather, if that story was even true, had intended, bringing help to those who needed it. I stayed in the army, made major 2 years later, did another deployment, this time to Syria. Different country, same impossible choices, but I never forgot that bridge. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, destroying the bridge, following orders without knowing the full truth. The honest answer is, I don't know. I saved lives, American soldiers who would have faced ambushes from weapons that came across that bridge, Afghan civilians who were caught in crossfire or used as leverage by insurgents who needed the village as a base. But I also cut off 200 people from the outside world for months, made their lives harder in a place where life was already brutal. And I did it while believing I was the villain in their story, only to learn later that I'd been manipulated by someone who saw me as naive and exploitable. Khalil was right about one thing.
Sorry doesn't rebuild a bridge. It doesn't change what happened or make the choices any cleaner. But here's what I learned in that gorge. Sometimes you have to make decisions with incomplete information. Sometimes you follow orders that feel wrong but turn out to be necessary. Sometimes the people you're trying to help are lying to you, and sometimes the morally complicated choice is still the right one. And sometimes you have to live with never knowing for certain if you did more good than harm. That's what I carry now. Not guilt exactly, but the weight of understanding that war doesn't give you clean wins. It gives you choices, consequences, and the obligation to keep going anyway. I think about Khalil sometimes, drinking tea in the shade, spinning his story about his grandfather's bridge, playing the role he needed to play to protect his interests. Was he a villain? A survivor? Both? I think about the villagers who just wanted to live their lives, caught between coalition forces and insurgents, making impossible compromises to stay alive. I think about my soldiers, Morrison with his missing leg, Chen placing charges with steady hands, Martinez staring out the window on the drive back from Jerez. And I think about that bridge, standing for 100 years, falling in under a minute, soon to be rebuilt. 5 years have passed since that deployment. Emma is 10 now. She wants to be a doctor. Sarah teaches at the local high school. I'm stationed at Fort Bragg, training the next generation of officers.
Last week, a young lieutenant asked me about moral injuries, about what happens when you have to make choices that feel wrong but are tactically necessary. I told him about the bridge. "Did you make the right call, sir?" he asked. "I followed orders," I said. "The orders were correct. The mission succeeded. The tactical outcome was exactly what command wanted. But was it the right call?" I looked at this kid, 23, fresh-faced, eager to understand war before he experienced it, trying to prepare himself for the weight he'd carry. The right call is the one you make with the information you have, execute it as well as you can, with the intent to minimize harm and complete the mission, I said. Whether it's the right call in some absolute moral sense, you don't get to know that. You just get to live with what you chose. He nodded slowly, not entirely satisfied with that answer. I wasn't either 5 years ago. But that's the truth of it. We don't get perfect clarity. We don't get to see all the consequences of our actions. We do our best with incomplete information in impossible situations, and then we carry whatever comes after. I destroyed a bridge in Afghanistan. It was the tactical decision. It probably saved lives. It definitely complicated others. The man who made me question that decision was lying to protect his own interests. But his lies didn't change the fact that real people suffered real consequences. War is full of these contradictions, these moral tangles that don't resolve cleanly. And the hardest part? Learning to live with that. Learning that you can make the right choice and still feel the weight of it. That you can follow orders and question them at the same time. That you can be manipulated and still do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Last month, Sarah and I were cleaning out the garage. She found my deployment gear, the pack I'd carried in Afghanistan. I hadn't opened it since I got back. Inside, folded carefully, was a small piece of stone, rough, about the size of my palm. I'd picked it up at the bridge site the night before we demolished it. Didn't even remember putting it in my pack. Sarah held it up. "What's this?" "A reminder," I said. "Of what?" I took it from her, felt the weight of it. That sometimes the right choice still costs something. And that's okay. It's supposed to. She didn't push for more explanation, just kissed my cheek and went back to sorting boxes. I kept the stone. It sits on my desk now at work. When young officers come to me with their impossible questions about war and morality and how to make the hard calls, I see them notice it. Sometimes they ask about it. I tell them it's from a bridge I destroyed in Afghanistan. That's all. No elaborate story, no moral lesson, just a fact. Because the truth is, I'm still working out what that bridge means, what Khalil's manipulation means, what it says about trust and duty and the spaces between truth and lies. But I know this, that bridge needed to come down. It was being used to hurt people, to facilitate violence, to maintain a system where the powerful exploited the vulnerable. And I know that destroying it hurt people too, made life harder for villagers who were already struggling. Both things are true. They exist together, contradicting and complicating each other. That's war. Not the clean narratives we tell ourselves, not heroes and villains, just people making choices in impossible circumstances, trying to minimize harm and complete the mission. I made a promise to Khalil that day in his compound that I'd do what I could to help the village. I kept that promise, even after I learned he'd been lying to me. Not because he deserved it, but because the promise wasn't really to him. It was to the people he claimed to represent, the ones who had no voice in any of this. That matters. Keeping your word even when others break theirs. Trying to do right even in morally compromised situations. Following through even when you learn you were deceived. The bridge came down. The village survived. The insurgents moved on. A new bridge is being built. Life continued, complicated and messy and imperfect. And I came home with a piece of stone and a story that doesn't end cleanly, that doesn't give me the satisfaction of knowing I was purely right or purely wrong. Just the knowledge that I did what I thought was necessary with the information I had, and that the consequences, both good and bad, are mine to carry. That's what command doesn't tell you about leadership, about war, that you'll make decisions that haunt you even when they're correct, that you'll question yourself even when others praise you, that you'll carry the weight of every choice, even the ones that save lives. But you carry it anyway, because that's the job. That's what it means to be responsible for other people's lives and safety. You make the call, you live with it, you keep going. Emma asked me last week what I did in the war. I made hard choices, I told her, and I tried to do the right thing. Did you? I think so, but I'm not always sure. She thought about that for a moment. Is it okay to not be sure? Yeah, kiddo, sometimes that's the only honest answer you can give. She nodded, satisfied, then went back to her homework, already moving on to the next thing. I wish it was that easy for me, but maybe someday it will be. Maybe the weight of that bridge will feel lighter. Maybe I'll stop wondering about Khalil and his motivations. Maybe I'll make peace with the fact that I was manipulated into doing the right thing. Or maybe I won't. Maybe this is just what it means to have been there, to have made those calls, to have carried that responsibility. Either way, I'm still standing, still serving, still trying to help the next generation understand what they're getting into before they face their own bridge in their own gorge with their own impossible orders. And on the hard days, when the weight feels too heavy, I pick up that piece of stone from my desk. Feel the roughness of it. Remember the sound of the bridge falling. And I remind myself, you made the call. You lived with it. You kept your word. That has to be enough. Because in war, it's all you get.